wabarakatuh. Welcome to the second episode of SK Interviews. I'm going to give it 1 minute before we get started, inshallah, or maybe less than that. Just going to get the links set up and then we're going to get going, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Mm, All right. I'm going to send it to you too in case you want to share it.
Yep.
Mm, Okay, let's get started, inshallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So today we have Brother Tushar on the call, alhamdulillah. Um, can I just get rid of that screen right there? So Tushar bhai, before we get started, maybe you can give us a
Assalamu
quick
alaikum.
one Safullah. Sorry, I think your
Are
video
you seeing connection
went off for a
issue
second. Maybe you can give
message?
us a quick. Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. It was kind of broken.
Okay, no worries. So maybe you can start us off by giving a quick background about your work with youth programming, particularly. I know professionally, like you're an engineer, you work at DTE. In regards to the youth work, though, maybe you can tell the viewers where you started with the youth work, how you got into youth work, and then where you are right now, and just to give a brief idea.
Okay, inshallah. Um, so I pretty much got involved with youth of Ummah, youth work. I had a lot of interest in sports growing up. I still do. Um, Play a lot of sports. I still play soccer, basketball with a lot of friends and whatnot, and playing a lot of tennis now. Um over last couple of years. So interest in sports got me attracted to leagues and whatnot. We were running at Youth of Ummah. I got involved with playing in a couple of the tournaments there, and then really started to feel like I belonged there. I wanted to do more work. I wanted to not only just benefit from the programs there, but also try to help out wherever I can, and then slowly get involved with that. Then get involved with doing other work with the programs that are going on there.
When did that
Eventually,
start? What year did that start? All this work,
first league I probably played in was uh, 2013, 14.
right?
May have even been 12. And then a couple of leagues into it, I started getting more and more involved with working for the leagues themselves, kind of running the leagues. So initially play in the leagues, then start running the leagues, then eventually take on more and more responsibilities. I felt like I fit in. Working with the youth, and I enjoyed being there. I saw a change in myself that made more sense, for betterment. And then I wanted to really get more involved so I can actually help others go through that type of feeling and transition. So
So
eventually, yeah, so eventually got involved with the leagues, and then once I did enough of the leagues, took on more and more responsibilities. I served in various committees that we had there, and then eventually the imam there asked me to lead the youth organization. So I did that. Brother Mohsin and a couple of other brothers that was there, but they were very supportive of it, and they kind of kept pushing me like, yep, hey, you'll be a good fit, why don't you try to do this. So I did. Alhamdulillah, it was probably best few years. Um, as far as change and being able to see things and really not only help the organization itself but help myself become better. um,
And so when you were essentially youth director for the youth programming, that's kind of like when I came into the program, right? In
yeah.
the Warren branch. So you were essentially my youth director when I first started out. And my route was pretty much the same, right? Starting off with basketball, just to play and have fun, and then becoming an organizer. And so the reason why I'm having this discussion, I mean, you're already aware, but for the viewers that are tuning in, you hear this term like Masjid politics, Masjid politics, Masjid politics. Anytime something goes wrong, someone's like, "Oh, there's some Masjid politics going on," right? This is a phrase that's like thrown around left and right, pretty much. So before we start, I just want to clarify and ask you a question. Do you have any problems with any masajid or any organizations like that?
No,
No,
of
right?
course not.
Look at that on video. Sometimes people
Yeah.
misunderstand, right? You see a flyer, you might think, okay, this guy's against masajid, but well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. He's not against masajid, right? I think instead he rather goes to the masjid on a weekly basis. But what we want to have, well, my intention behind this particular topic is to kind of show that, or to ask you and have the viewers decide, is there value in youth programming? What comes out of youth programming? The limitations of youth programming, and in reality, there are masjid politics that carry out that can hinder. Not necessarily. I don't want to bring in youth of ummah or any specific masjid or any mosque. Right? There are so many mosques in our area that have youth programming. ITW, the masjid right next to 10 Mile, IGD, Kenton, Tawheed Center, Farmington Hills, all of these masajid have youth programming, mashallah, and they're doing a great job. My job isn't to talk about which specific mosque is having political issues. What I'm hoping to get out of is to ask you, someone who's been involved in youth programming for about 10 years or now, to see what challenges you face, what we can do to understand what really politics refers to, and kind of go from there. Does that work with you?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can.
Inshallah, yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Okay, look, then let's get started, inshallah. So
Okay.
the first thing, I know you said you started off with um, being in a league, then you started being an organizer, then you became youth director. So tell me, how was your experience when you were youth director for the first year and then onward? What were your main challenges when you became youth director?
Just the transition into taking on more responsibilities. So it really varies on how you approach it. It's just like anything else, like your studies, your work, and anything else that you're trying to accomplish in life. It's whatever you put into it is what you're gonna get, right? I'm more of like I have a personality where whatever it is that I'm doing, I really have to try to do well. Really, um, always trying to hold myself accountable and whatnot. So I had challenges with that right at the beginning when I started, because I wanted to kind of see things happening a certain way, and it was taking time and it wasn't easy. And like I mentioned earlier, having a good team of people is the key to success, right? So you always try to find good brothers, good sisters that can kind of work well together and get aligned with you. And those are the things we initially focused on that really helped us um, kick things off good. So
Well, I would like
challenges,
just to cut you off
go,
because I'm
go.
going to be doing
Yeah,
this a little bit throughout the entire interview, because there are going to be points you're saying that I want to kind of hone in on. Right?
mhm,
You said a
yeah.
statement. You said things weren't going the way I wanted it to. What does that mean?
It means, you may think right when you come in, you're like, okay, we want to start these type of programs, we want to do these type of programs, uh, but you may not have resources to do it. You come in and you're really energetic and you think like, okay, yeah, community needs this. There's so many people that are asking for programs for 5 year olds. We need to do something for 5, 6, 7 year olds, but you don't have enough people to do that, right? You also have to work with the team that you have and take their input, really vet things out, evaluate it before you start launching programs or doing things. Those are the things that was kind of challenging right at the beginning. It's the excitement in combination of actually trying to get results, but all of that takes time. Um, and that's what the challenging part of that was.
So when you're dealing with a group that you're working with for the first time around as a director, you have two aspects to it, from what I understand, right? You have the team that you are guiding as a youth director, and then you have leadership, whether it's a masjid. So it depends on the masjid. Every masjid has their own way of doing it. Generally speaking, there is like a masjid committee or a representative from the masjid that pretty much comes and works with the youth, right? So I'm just gonna ask about your experience, and then we're gonna kind of shift to what might be happening generically for everybody who's in the
Yeah,
youth work, if that makes sense.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so typically you always want to work hand in hand with the masjid. Is that always easy? No. Are the two programs you always separate? No. Depends on what environment you're in, how the organization is structured. You may not have as much um, authority over the youth programs and the organization. However, the programs that I was involved with, or the organization I was involved in, I had that room, right, to be able to actually go do things with our own team of people that we wanted to run the programs. And we always had a connection with the imam and everybody else. Not all, unfortunately, not all organizations are structured the same way. They're not all working the same in the same way, where youth has that room to be able to make those decisions. Even when you do have the two organizations separate enough to be able to do to have enough control over what things you want to do, right? um, there's still a struggle, because continuously you're gonna hear about whether or not these programs that's being ran are good or not. uh,
Why do you say two organizations?
the masjid and the youth program, in the case of where we were doing the work, the organizations are separate, right?
Do you think that's a
No,
better model, or is it better to go with one organ? What do you think? Like,
it's a sister organization, so even if they are two organizations, right, they are connected. However, it's always better to have two organizations, in my opinion, from what I've seen. You cannot say that we are um, masjid, pick a name, right?
Masjid X, no problem.
Masjid X.
Masjid
uh,
Salam, regular name. Like Masjid Abu Bakr, common
Masjid,
name, right?
okay, so Masjid Abu Bakr, and this is the Masjid Abu Bakr's youth organization. But the
Right.
youth organization doesn't have an identity. It makes it very
Why does
difficult,
it need an identity?
because they need to feel like they belong. They have their own mission, the vision, and we should spend some time talking about mission and vision, which is kind of one of the key things in success of an organization. But if you have them both together, you've never basically given enough control to the youth for them to focus on creating their own area, own path, own programs based on what they need, right? It's always kind of overshadowed. It's like, have you guys done youth programs? Yeah. What are you doing? We're doing this. It's not good. Why don't you do this instead?
To go back to the wait, so 1 second. So you're saying if the sister organization, if the youth have their own identity and they have their own mission, why would they have a different mission than the mission of the masjid?
It's a sister mission. So, because you can't,
No, I'm just asking, right? I'm just
if
asking.
the mission of the masjid, or whatever center that's there, right, is to serve the community, uh, grow the community, and I'm giving examples, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
um, Serve the community, grow the community, solve the problems of the community. But the problems of the community that the masjid needs to focus on are probably solving problems of families, people that are having issues with marriages, people that are having issues raising kids, people that are having issues, health problems that needs to come and ask for help at the masjid. Sometimes in that list of priorities, the youth are may just fall lower and lower and lower. If you give them their own room and own set of mission that allows them to focus on you know developing through education, being able to go out, play sport, build brotherhood, build sisterhood, it really creates this sub organization within the uh, center or the masjid that's there, and really allow them to focus on those things, right? The other thing that happens is every time you're evaluating, like, hey, how are we doing? We've got Masjid Salam, right? And then we got Masjid Salam juniors here. you start evaluating juniors separately. You say like, how is this organization doing? That's our organization. It's a sub
So
organization.
in this case, where there's the reason I'm asking is because some masajid go with having one
Mhm.
identity, and some masajid go with having two identities, right? And this is tied into question one that I sent you prior to the interview, which is talking about the hierarchical structure of the masajid, right, versus the youth organization.
Yeah.
Because the question that I sent you says, does it limit, right, their participation, their decision making power in shaping their own program? But I have to ask you a question:
Yeah.
can that be concerning though? If, for example, youth kind of go off on their own and start making decisions of doing whatever they want to do, isn't that concerning?
It's concerning only if they go on their own. Remember, the organization itself is dependent upon the larger organization. So you have to spend a lot of time drawing the mission and the vision of the organizations. A lot of times we jump the gun on that, right? Like we may think, what's the big deal? You already know we're serving the community, right? We already serve. We got 500 musallis that come for Eid Salah. We have 1,000 people that we get, right? For Jum'ahs, we get 3 Jum'ahs, we have 200 people. What's the big deal? You know what needs to be done. The youth are not coming to that. Um, you already have our mission and vision right here. Tell them to follow that.
So
What ends up happening is, if that's not created separately, first of all, from the youth perspective, you don't have your own set of goals, right? Like these are the things we're trying to accomplish. Number one. From the larger organization perspective, it's always lower in the priority list, because you're always going to try to focus as a center or focus as whatever the priority that you already have, because we're not going to be able to accomplish all of them. um, in
so
that case, yeah, go ahead,
no, so I was gonna ask
clarify it.
in this, yeah. So in this case, if we're saying let don't let the youth be alone,
Mhm.
that goes to a follow up question. What is a how do you select the right type of person to lead that group of people, right? You're talking about youth empowerment, you're talking about let the kids do their own thing. Okay, who is, I mean, I get it, maybe you're the youth director, but we're not talking about you. We're talking about a masjid who is considering youth programming, right? What criteria should they look for before selecting the leader of that youth programming section or department?
Somebody who already understands the mission or the vision of the larger organization. They have to understand what that masjid or the center is already trying to do. If they don't understand that, there's already a big gap to start off with, right? Because when the youth leader starts getting together with other youth and their teams, and they build teams, they're going to start talking, and they're going to start kind of going astray, because they may have different type of focus, and they may not understand that, you know, as a community, here's where we're trying to get, here's what we are looking for in our community, here's the differences that we want to make in our community. And if the youth organization and its leader doesn't understand the mission and the vision of the larger organization, it's a bad start right from the beginning.
So in this case, does age or gender play a role in the decision making process of who should lead that group?
Typically, based on age, you're looking at experience, right? But not all brothers or sisters that are older in age are going to necessarily bring the experience or bring the maturity that's needed, or the understanding of the mission and the vision of the larger organization. So what you should really look for, I would say, are the understanding. If they have good understanding, if they have good manners, if they have good character, and then they actually have um, some leadership skills, things that they actually people look at them, right? They talk to them, they understand them, especially youth. If they have good youth connection, where youth respect them, and they listen to them, that's a good candidate for
You
you.
don't have a minimum age as a ballpark. Any recommendations?
I would say probably college student, if not a college graduate.
Right.
I would not say high school for sure.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah,
Because when you say youth and you're saying led by the youth, run by the youth, everything is done by the youth, right? We have to there has to be a defining line. Has to
yeah.
be some, like, right?
Yeah, minimum age I would say is probably 22, 23,
Yeah.
where we start having our perspective in life starts changing, right? We're more serious. We understand that there are goals and things in life. I think up until college, we're kind of just flipping chapters, right? We go to high school, it's all predefined. Go to high school, learn this. Go to college, learn this. Then you get a job, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, yeah, what's life about, right?
Okay, so then I have a question going back to the Masjid politics part. If
Yeah,
you have two organizations, let's keep going with the same flow of your discussion. You're saying let's have two organizations so they can have their own identity. Okay, I got that part. Now, they have their own mission and vision so they can feel empowered. Okay, I got that part. Now, here's a question, which I'm sure is common. If they have their own identity and they have their own mission and vision, though they are led by someone who understands the overall mission of the parent organization, how do you, well, or not how do you, but what challenges do they come across when it comes to meeting metrics of success as a youth organization, respective to their goals versus the goals of the parent organization?
yeah, good question. So, um, the biggest challenge is probably an understanding of what we are trying to accomplish through the youth organization, um, and then realistic goals, right? Sometimes when you start seeing youth coming around and there's more of them at the masjid, uh, more people are engaged, they want to learn, they're attending programs, you may start setting unrealistic goals, and then sometimes that parent organization may start thinking, okay, there's a lot of people here, this is great, you guys are doing a great job of coming, but however, they're not doing the work that we're asking them to do. They just come to try to do what they want to do. What's the difference between the two? Parent organization may be looking for someone who they want coming in and contributing to the mission and the vision of the parent organization, right? But the youth that started getting attracted to coming around the masjid are probably attracted to the mission and the vision that we set as a youth organization. And that's what they're sticking to because it's a transition process, right? Eventually, through that work, they may get into a point where, like, okay, I want to get involved with the masjid too. I want to get involved with everything else that's going on. That initially doesn't happen necessarily, and because those metrics are not very clear, it's not analytical, right? Like you don't say that we got 5 people this year, that's a success, or we got 10 people more involved now. Oh wow, we have 4 programs as opposed to 2 we used to have.
So what is the
Those
what
metrics
is
are,
the metric for success?
the metric for success is more based on the qualitative environment people are coming and how it's contributing towards the mission and the vision of the youth organization, because that's where they're going to come first.
Give me an example of
You,
that. Maybe either from your experience or what you've seen before. What does that mean?
that means that if you have less people that are practicing, that are coming around the masjid, and now you have more people that are coming around the masjid, they're more involved, they want to give more time, that's qualitative improvement already, right? If you really wanted to define quantitative success, um, you need to predefine it so that you're able to compare the two at the end of the year or whatever your evaluation periods are, and be able to see that did we really accomplish what we were trying to accomplish. The problem becomes with metrics are, if you don't have it predefined, but in the evaluation you look at it that way, it becomes difficult. And I
No
feel
one's gonna have it predefined.
no one's going to have it predefined. I know that's where I think one of the
That's a
biggest
paradox.
challenges.
You're looking at a paradox. You're
Yeah,
saying, well, well, from what I understand, any masjid would be saying, let's start a youth organization. We'll figure out what to do, which is pretty much every masjid.
yeah,
Just to give like my background, I've worked with different youth organizations, 5 different youth organizations, so 4 to 5. I haven't been as involved as I have been Youth Huma. Obviously, the degree varies, but I've seen like some behind the scenes, and they're all pretty much similar, which is that let's start something, but then there is no predefined. You won't have it, and the guy who's starting or the sister who's the youth, whoever is the youth director, they don't know what to think either. right? Imagine you just said based on your definition, give someone who's 22, 23. Okay, this person just graduated college, has no idea what to make out of the youth organization, and then you're basically setting them up for failure. Isn't that concerning?
Yeah, yeah, it is concerning, and that is the exact reason we need to have enough things thought through before we take on a project, right? Don't look at the youth programs or the youth organization itself as just, hey, here's something on the side, let's do it. Actually, take it really seriously. Define mission, vision before you get started, and then once you do get started, set realistic goals, right? Like set predefined metric that you can actually look at, and now you can actually say, you can scrutinize it at the end and say, well, you know what, we really didn't accomplish what we intended to, right? We intended to have 6 programs, but we have 4. We intended to see this many people from the community starting to come to the masjid, or more people getting engaged, and we actually didn't see them. But those things don't get set, and then anytime you're subjectively evaluating anything, uh, it's left upon you to be able to go in one direction versus the other, because
So
it's
can someone
being.
can someone argue that okay, there should be like the same or the standard goals for any masjid that is starting out a youth organization? Can someone argue that, like, hey, if a Masjid X is starting something from tomorrow in New York and someone is starting something in Michigan, they should have a similar starting point or starting goals. Would that be something that's a fair argument or no?
It's going to depend upon the community size and
Hmm.
various factors, right? You shouldn't set it, you should set that as a standard to set those goals.
Hmm.
Don't set the standard around what those goals should be, if that makes sense. So
Break it down a little bit.
set it as a priority, that we aren't going to just select a youth director and say, we are here to support you, go, right? Sit with them, tell them what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Here's the predefined, what we're trying to accomplish. Start off with mission, start off with vision. We'll even work with you to figure out what those should be, right? Based on the parent organization. And then afterwards say, this year, here's what we're trying to do, right? We want youth to come and volunteer more. And guess what's going to happen to the youth director now? He's going to focus on really getting youth and really explaining to them the benefits of volunteering, right? And really getting them involved through that, right? What might end up happening is, now the 100 youth you could have gotten, right? You may end up with 2 from there. Because do you think every one of those 100 that the youth director is going to go out and talk to are already bought into and in the benefits of volunteering? Probably not, right? All of our imams are at different levels. So if you go and talk to 100 youth right now and you say, I really need you to volunteer, hey, look, there's a lot of reward in volunteering. You got to give back, come help us during this program, that program. And they haven't been connected to the masjid, they're probably not going to tell you, I will show up on Sunday or I'll show up on Saturday when you're needing me. But if you actually go out and say, we are going to be doing something that you actually like and enjoy too, why don't you come? You might get 80 out of the 100 youth to come, and then slowly work with them and try to make them understand that, hey, look, I'm here. I benefit from this. I love being here. And I'm slowly seeing, like, really, there's a lot of benefit to giving back, helping out, helping the community, right? That transition may happen to the youth over time based off of that. But I hope I'm making
No,
sense
no,
when
you're making
when I'm
sense.
saying when I'm saying that those goals needs to be set, predefined, based on those understandings, right? Between the
the,
and,
the
and
the reason why it's probably hard to break it down for someone who might be listening is because it's subjective, which was premise one, right? New York is not the same thing as Michigan, and I get that. But let's say those defined goals are kind of there. Where do we see? And this is again the focus of the topic today, which is the Masjid politics. I don't want to say Masjid politics. I'd rather want to say like, look, do you see a gap in the masjid boards? I mean, there's an obvious gap, which is called the age gap. That's there. You cannot change that, right? There's a huge age gap within every masjid board and every youth program. That's the point of having a youth program. They're people from a different age, right? That age gap is there. But in addition to the age gap, what other concerns or gaps are there between the masjid committee or the leadership, whatever you want to call them, and the youth group that's trying to do something? What what hindrances are there? What issues come up commonly that you can at least speak from your experience that you've seen that should be discussed?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is setting of the expectations, um, that we've been talking about so far. It needs to be really clear what we're trying to accomplish through the project, right? If the parent organization already has a idea in mind and that's what they want the youth to work on, um, it needs to be defined ahead of time, and the youth needs to understand. The youth group that's going to run that youth organization needs to understand that, buy into that, and then take off with it, right?
Do
uh,
you see like do you see like issues with transparency between masjid board and the youth? Like from at least from my end, you know how one of my red flags that comes into my head is that you said the parent organization has their own mission and vision, and the youth have their own mission and vision. That sounds great, like theoretically, but then doesn't that also open up pathways where the youth are left in the dark from the parent organization's next plans, next things that are happening? For example, they have their own programming happening, conflict of programming, common, very common, right? We have a program, the adults have a program. How do you reconcile that? Who gets precedence? Oh, that's a problem, right? Or the money, right? Let's say, how should we consider money coming in to support the youth? Because some people say, donate the money to the masjid, and then the masjid will decide how much money to give to the youth. How do you go around these issues?
okay, so one thing, first of all, right, remember, go back to what we were saying with the mission and the vision. What was the purpose of setting the mission and the vision? It's because
Expectation, expectation, and
expectation, right? We as grandparent organization, right, whoever is in charge of all the organization, the parent, the child, and everything else that we're running, whoever the board is, right, they should already know before that masjid opened what the purpose is. If we don't know, then shame on us. I mean, I don't even know why we're starting the organization. We should know what we're trying to do with that organization. You opened a masjid, you opened a center, you opened something to serve the
well,
community.
well, generally people open a masjid just for salah.
Okay,
Okay,
I
okay.
know,
Let's let's
I know.
let's be real. I'm opening a masjid. I want to get my 5 prayers in. I want to establish Jummah. Now that I've established 5 prayers, I can and Jummah. I can officially Shari'i wise say I'm a masjid. Okay, now I can
Mhm.
have i'tikaf. Now I'm like, okay, I see only elders coming to masjid. I only see elders coming to pray. Where are all the kids? I have some concern. This is the general script. I have concern. I see one guy, he's in his mid 30s, mid 20s. He's the only one that comes. Let me ask him, hey, can you get the youth to come? We'll help you, right? Okay, you take it from here.
Okay, that is basically a way to a disaster, right? Because I would ask everybody that's opening up a masjid with that mentality, right? That we're gonna actually open up a musalla where we're gonna pray 5 times, and then we want our youth to become who we are. The same way we are trying to pray 5 times, they're gonna try to come and pray 5 times, and they're gonna come to the Jummah, and they're gonna come to any other special programs that we're gonna run, and that's all we're gonna do. I ask you to go back to the youth that you're expecting to come in, go back to their age when you were that age. Did you do it? And did you expect that from yourself? Okay. Did the community you lived in, maybe you did, maybe a few of those brothers are
And there was a culture difference
were
too.
great,
Don't forget that, right? Like
and the culture
in
difference.
Bangladesh, in Yemen, like it's everyone is casually walking to the masjid. It's a
Yes.
culture, right? It's
Yeah.
not.
Okay, so say you did do that, right? But what did that community do that? Did
Mm.
that community as a whole do that, right? And what was the reason for it? You bring up the great point, right? Maybe the culture itself pushed it, right? That was the norm. Adhan got called, everybody just went to
Yeah,
salah.
yeah, very
That's not
common.
that's not the environment here, right? So
Mm.
you're basically trying to put your model into an environment and an area that doesn't support the same thing, and without those understanding, we're basically setting expectations again. We're setting expectations that from the get go is going to fail because we're thinking it's just going to happen. I migrated here, I figured out that I need to worship Allah, right? And I'm coming and I look how far I've gone to open the masjid, which is great, by the way. What the parents here are doing are just amazing work, right? It's just that we all have, as parents, they have to understand that the youth deals with different type of challenges. They're in a different environment, they grew up differently, and it's very difficult. The issues that parents and grandparents are dealing with versus what the youth are dealing with, and they actually have to go out there and live with this culture, right? A lot of times as parents, what we don't understand, what elders don't understand, is they can actually ignore it. They can actually say that, hey, I'm not gonna, I have a circle of 10 friends that are all Muslim and they are the ones that comes to the
I mean,
masjid.
there are many who have come to this country respectfully so, and still have not learned uh, like how to speak English
Yeah,
generally, which is okay. But that's the idea. Like, Alhamdulillah, we're able to be in a
alhamdulillah.
Muslim environment where our parents don't have to be taken out of their comfort zone, right?
Correct.
But but also that means they have never left their comfort zone.
They didn't leave their comfort zone, and they've been blessed with that circle of friends, right?
Right,
who
right,
who they can actually have a complete life with, right? Because life itself has more than just family too. You have friends, your environment, your circle of people and others that you meet. But the youth that you're expecting to do the same thing don't have those same circles, so it's very unfair to ask for the same thing from them, right? um, and when we do ask for that and we set that expectation, it's just not going to happen. It's difficult for them. They have workplace, they go, they work with non-Muslims, they're in a non-Muslim environment, they have friends that are probably saying that they're going to go do things after work that we don't agree on, right? And we're expecting them to come to the masjid and then go to work again the next day with those same people, right? And then when they ask them to go do something else, hang out with them tomorrow, for them to say no again, and then still show up for the prayers on Thursday again, right? And still go work with those people on Friday. We have to be realistic enough that we understand they're living a different life. We have to help them live the deen within that life, right? And that's where the gaps are. That's where the differences are. That's where the challenges are. So as parent organization, we have to understand the scenarios, and that's why the important part is actually initially spending the time to understand your youth,
no
understand
one has
youth.
argument comes who has time for that. Like, this is, I'm going to give you a genuine argument, okay? You're
Understood.
talking about, hey, there's this other group, younger group, focus on them. But then you also told me someone is to focus on the married couples for counseling, someone is to focus on the adults and the seniors and the elders, someone is to focus on this and that. Then how am I supposed to come up with all this time to even sit down? What's the point of me getting the youth director if I have to do it myself?
You're not supposed to. If it's not high enough in your priority list, you don't need to do it. So but that priority list needs to get set, right? We need to be realistic with it. We can't say we want musalla to play for the prayers, and we want the jumas, and we want to make sure that we have big Eid jumas, right? We have big programs during Ramadan, and our resources are 10 people, and one of those we assign to youth organization, and here's all the things we want accomplished from youth, and the other 90, so 9 of your 10 resources are focused on all the other goals that you've got for the masjid that you want to do, right? And you assigned one person to that youth organization and said, go start this thing. Here's what the expectations are for that. When you really write all this stuff down, or when you really actually openly talk about it, you you yourself already start answering those questions when you step back from it and you look at the expectations I set, right? By default, you're going to start looking at it and say, oh wow, you know what, we set ourselves to fail. There's no way. Like, look, 90% of the resources are focused on this, right? We put 10% of the resource to this, and we never realized that was actually our main focus. We actually wanted the youth to start coming. If we did want them to come, right, put resources there, put more focus there, do more check-ins with them, send more people there. Actually, maybe some of the elders too. The elders should be going there. Literally, like, if your resources, irrespective of age, are 10, imagine you invited a bunch of youth, and then three members of the masjid that are constantly taking care of masjid activities, right, are sitting there with the youth and asking them, what did you guys need? That's because they recognize that that was the priority. It's already going to create a different type of environment for the youth that came in.
So you're saying this all because you started this off by saying, "Hey, it really depends on your priority." From your experience, where should that lie? Where should this youth programming priority lie in a list for a masjid, fully functioning masjid?
It should be in the top 10%.
What does that mean? Top 10%.
Whatever
Usually,
you're,
people think of priority as like one, two, three, four, five. My top five things. So out of 10 things, just the first thing.
if there's 10 things, then the first thing. If you've got 10 things, it's one of the first two things, I would say. In the top
What's
10.
other in terms of
What else is there?
yeah from your
uh, um Depends on the organization itself, right? What the mission vision of the organization. But typically you've got increasing musallis for the masjid, right? uh,
increasing the number of musallis? Okay.
Increasing the number of musallis. That's a quantitative goal, right? But what it really means is getting the community into masjid,
Right,
right?
right, right, right.
So don't, I know
Yeah, yeah.
it might sound like go recruit people to
No, no,
bring.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, but it's like engage the community, right? So they feel like they belong at the masjid.
Hmm.
Okay, um, and uh, and so that's got to be one of the top things. And then people to start practicing the deen, like how being there, physically being there. So not just the salah, right? What else do people do to get more involved? Look for what the community is looking for. If the community is actually struggling on iman, there should be a lot of programs around iman. If the community is really struggling and actually doing the salah properly, there should be a lot of programs that teaches people how to do salah. If the people in the community do ask people, hey, blank survey, nobody, no name or anything else, how many people read the Quran or can read the Quran, and do a survey at Jummah, and you find out half of the entire community that comes to Jummah cannot pray, cannot read the Quran properly. It doesn't matter how much we're telling people you need to read the Quran every day. He can't even read it. He or she, the brother or sister, can't even read it. So when you're actually giving that message at the khutbah and saying, make sure you're connecting and reading the Quran, they're actually disconnecting from you. Because they're
Hmm.
thinking like, oh, I don't belong here, right? Like, look, this community already expects people to be reading the Quran, and I can't read the Quran. So you find out what your community needs. If your community needs people to be able to, the gaps are, people are, they don't know how to read the Quran, then that's what you teach. You start running programs that teaches Quran, Tajweed, Qam, even the alphabets. Start from there, right? If your community has uh, problems, they come to Salah all the time, but the majority of the people actually don't keep their word. They're not telling the truth, right? There's a lot of corruptions and things going on. People, the type of work your community is involved in is actually
Like interest-based businesses, for example,
exactly.
generally speaking, right? Yeah.
Like, we need to know who our community is. How are we going to serve them if we don't know them, right? And there should be like surveys going. We do that with youth organizations. We actually talk to them and we ask them, what are their interests? What sports leagues do you want? What do you want to learn about? Hey, where uh, do you do you know how to read Quran? If not, go to this class, right?
Right, right, right.
If you don't know this, if you don't know how to pray, let's have a workshop. I mean, there's so much difficulties in the communities now with, like, I don't want to go on another tangent too with this, but there's so much difficulty with like marriages and things like that, right? And what are we doing? What are we doing for the youth that are struggling
Yeah.
to
So
get?
is that's under the youth category, right?
That's under the youth category, but the model is the same, right? The model is the same, even for the parent
No, I'm
organization.
saying that should give it more emphasis. If that's a rampant thing going on in our society, that should be one of the biggest priorities.
Exactly. And if we're organized enough, right, when we did that survey, we should be able to take data from that survey, right, and say, hey, that 10%, the person we just assigned for the youth organization, here's a couple of priorities. And we're going to actually look for that. Let's try to give us some ideas on how to deliver. Go make your team, or we'll help you make a team. Let's talk about it and figure out how we can solve those problems, right? While we focus on these problems. I think we're like really, really, not wrongfully, but we're so used to doing that, right? We're so focused on providing a place for people to come and worship that we're actually forgetting the real struggles of the community sometimes. And when you do forget about people and their struggles, what ends up happening is they forget about the masjid it's altogether, because they're coming, they're praying, they're thinking that they're doing what you're asking them to do, but they still don't feel like they belong. They don't feel like someone cares. They don't feel like someone's actually going to come and make a change in their life, or give them an idea, or help them through a struggle that they're going through. And when that happens, naturally people start getting disconnected, and they don't feel like they belong there. And the masjids and the centers should be our solutions to like community's problem, right?
Hmm.
And those problems, the solution to those problems are not always through coming and doing ritualistic prayers. Of course, it's important. It's on the top of the list. You're not gonna bring a Muslim brother or sister at the masjid and say, "By the way, you're here. You don't need to pray." No, don't worry. Adhan just got called, but here, let's go talk about your problem so we can solve it. We never do that, right? No one's saying we need to do that. But you pray with them and then you ask about them. You
Hmm.
say, "Hey, is everything okay?" Or, "Haven't seen you last few days. What's going on? Are you, is there anything I can do to help?" Right? How do you think that person is going to feel once that person is asked about that, right?
Yeah.
They're just naturally going to come. Next time you say, "I need you to help, I need your help with volunteering with this, or I need your help with this program," and naturally they're just going to feel like family. You don't, sometimes you don't even have to ask. Believe it or not, sometimes they just come and ask, like, "What can I get involved with? Is there something else going on? Hey, I love doing this with you guys, or I love working here. Is there something else I can help with?"
Okay.
Because they feel like they belong.
And going, let's say, for someone who is taking on that priority list, right? You got a youth organizer, they gave that 10%. You have a really nice masjid for whatever reason, they're doing a good job right now. But I'm a youth organizer, I'm a youth director, whatever the case is. I'm trying to run programming, and out of nowhere, a veto comes my way, right? So the masjid board decides, or the imam decides, or the leadership decides, right? We had everything planned. The group had it planned. There was a voting process. People felt empowered, and then you heard no. Because I've been through this, by the way, not with you, the Humma, not with a different organization where group people were all excited. Let's get this going. I saw guys who do not care, like, about volunteering. They love giving money to the masjid. They love supporting the masjid. They love praying in the masjid. But for the first time, they were like, "I want to volunteer. I'm in." Right? So I was like, "Whoa!" Like, all right, game changer. And then leadership was like, "Oh, no, like, great idea, but no." How do you deal with that? As a, I mean, that's right there, Masjid politics, right? Like, overpowering the decision, right? Maybe it goes back to the mission and vision. I don't know, but maybe what should a youth organizer do at that situation?
Ask why, right? Um, we should never give, we should never send down a decision without ever saying why. Uh, and if that why is good enough, if it is because whatever program that they wanted to design and run didn't line up with the mission and vision, and we explain that, most of the people will probably accept it. Most of them will always look at it and say, "You're right, we missed the target on this. Here's how we can modify it," right?
Let's say we didn't.
You
We
didn't,
didn't miss the target on the mission and vision, right? Let's say
but you're
this,
just being told to shut down.
right. There was a certain programming you want to run. It doesn't go against. It's not against. It's actually helpful. It's actually going to enhance the programming,
So what
right?
was the reason for that no? I guess just no, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, it was like, this is a really good idea. It's something we should think about maybe down the line, kind of thing. And that's basically all that was said. I asked the brothers who were in the meeting. I said, "All
That's
right,
nice.
give me a little bit more." I'm like, "How long was the meeting?" They're like, "A few hours." I'm like, "All right, what else was said?" And he said, "Honestly, I don't know, but we were there for a few hours." you know,
Yeah.
that's tough. That's the reality, by the way. I know you're giving
It
like
is.
ideal answers for, like, okay,
It
great,
is.
ask the why, and that's easy, no problem. It goes against the vision, cut it off.
But we do need to ask the whys, right? We do need to ask the whys, and what ends up sometimes when you do ask the whys, is gonna at least, even if that decision is still um, sent down, hopefully you would hope that the leadership and others actually understands that, yeah, hey, we shouldn't have done that, right? Maybe
this
we,
is the whole point. This is the crux of today's discussion, right? This is what I mean by Masjid politics.
yeah,
When the decision overrides something that was going to be good, right? Or the other aspect to it, and you can tackle whichever one you want to talk about first. The other aspect to it is funding, right? I
yeah,
kind of briefly brought this up earlier. Funding, money wise, right? If a masjid, for example, raises $1 million and then gives 50K to the youth, what does that mean? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I mean, you can get away with saying
so
depends to a certain extent, but then what?
yeah. So let's go through it one step at a time. Let's go through the first one. Okay, if you are told that you can't go through it, whatever program that was proposed, it's not a good fit. Always ask why. Let's find out why. Let's work. It does two things. It gives you a reason so that it's easier to communicate that to the youth. And then the second thing is it gives this team building feeling between the parent and the child organization, right? Because you care. You actually want to know why. Not your whys shouldn't be. And again, remember, it goes back to like character, mannerism, and all of that when you're selecting a person. Because what you don't want is a youth coming and saying, "Oh yeah, why we're not going to do this? We need to do this." No, you're asking why because it's like, yeah, there's no problem. We're not going to do it, but we really need to know why because everybody was very excited about it, right? You may still get a no. In that case, communicate and tell them like, hey, this caused damage. I hope everybody understands that because the youth was really excited to do this. When
Okay,
we're
that was
grown,
important. Yeah, that part.
okay,
Communicating to say cause damage, right? Because the why is just
yeah,
like
yeah,
doesn't what happens when you're not happy with the why? Let's say you are someone of reason, you understand. I mean, you got chosen to be youth director because you have understanding, right?
yeah,
So if you're the youth director, the person who's supposed to have all these great characteristics and intellect, and you're confused, like what? Then
yeah,
what?
yeah. Now remember this though, even after you communicate sometimes, right? We're all humans, we're not perfect. So sometimes the elders and sometimes the elders may still say no, and they may still take on saying that, you know what, yeah, you know what, fine, damage, no damage, who cares, you can't do this, you absolutely can't do this. You just need to continuously make it clear that this did cause damage, this will impact the participation of youth, this will impact the excitement and everything else that youth requires to get involved, right? We all do at those ages. You need to have something exciting for you to be involved in it. It's not never
Sorry,
set expectations
could you repeat
thinking
that?
that
You
the
got
youth
you
are going
got
to
you
just come
glitched
in
out.
and say, yeah, and I'm fully submitted to.
No, right, you
uh,
glitched out for a little bit. You from it's not. I think I missed it. You could
did it
repeat
cut
it.
off?
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, so I was saying that we still ask the why, right? And then we make it clear that the impact this had on the youth organization, right? Because of because of the type of expectation we set, or because of the questions, or because of the way we shut the program down, they're not going to accept it, and they're going to accept it. Of course, they're going to accept it because that's the decision. But it's going to impact them. It's going to make them feel bad. It's going to make them feel like they don't belong. They can't be heard. They that this is not a room for them, and it doesn't matter what decision they make, it gets overtaken, and there's no point of all this work, right? You make all of that really really clear. As a parent organization, if all of those things still don't change us, we can't expect results. It's just not going to happen. It never even happens with adults, right? When you have 10 people that comes together and says that, hey, you know what, everybody in this circle has the same voice, so voice your opinions. And then when the opinions are voiced, it's just the one or two people that make all the decisions. Guess what happens? Eventually it's not a 10 people team anymore, right? It
That's
becomes
pretty
a
much
six.
everywhere, right? And pretty much everything, I think. I've
That's pretty
noticed
much yeah, but you still need to take the opinions. You still need to take the opinions and give a reason of why which one is best. Do you know what I'm saying?
that. Doesn't
Does
that
that
doesn't that waste
time?
more time?
Yeah, yes, absolutely wastes more time. This is why all of this work requires so much time. The time, a lot of times I hear that from people is, and I'm sure you do too, Brother Said. Uh, People are saying, "What is this? Why do we need to spend all this time doing this work? Just run this program, do this and do that." It's because of those
I
things,
want to
right?
give a quick shout out to one of our volunteers in a good way, Brother Ninad. When he first came in,
Mm,
he was a volunteer. His first feedback to me was like, and a few others, you as well, right? And I'm saying this in a good way, because at
Yeah.
the beginning when they first jumped in, he was like, "Why don't you just decide for everybody and move forward with it?" Like that's
Yeah.
literally what he told me, and I was like, "Bro, that sounds great," and all. He's like, "Yeah, because you already did this before, right? Just tell us what we need to do. We'll just do it. It's very simple." Now
Yeah.
he's more into the he's following the process, right? But what's wrong with what Nina said? What's wrong with that statement?
It doesn't work. It doesn't keep a team engaged, right? It doesn't keep the youth engaged. It doesn't grow. Uh, it's more like it's more like trying to accomplish a goal, regardless of whom or how it gets completed. So um, there's various type of goals, the organizational goals, and the way you do collective work cannot just shut people off and be led by individuals, one or two or three people, right? um, because eventually those one or two or three people will make mistakes. They will make wrong decisions, right? And the second thing happens, what happens when those one or two or three people no longer wants to be involved? You just have to restart, right? You reinvent the wheel. If you have more people involved over time, they change their mentality, they change the way they work, they learn from each other, and then you end up with more people that can make those type of decisions. The other thing is, think about it this way: we're all humans, right? uh, why would you continue to go be a part of a board or a group or a team or a core team or whatever that group is that runs the committee, the program, right? Why would you continue to be going somewhere where your opinion doesn't even count? You have nothing to say. You just come in. There's decision makers already that's going to make the decisions. You're not growing. You're not learning. And then if you even if you were to learn to develop ideas and how to give them, it never gets taken into consideration.
Mm,
Eventually you're going to dry out. You don't feel like you belong there. You don't feel like you bring any values. And organization itself is going to be hindered completely. There's no way you grow. You cannot grow. It just doesn't work. And there's plenty of places, right? Even in corporations and other places, there are groups that are run by two, three people, but those groups are hindered. That's why there's so much effort in engaging everybody else, because you want to be able to get different perspective, different ideas, and main thing is keep engagement, right? And
absolutely.
in our work, engagement is probably one of the most important things, because at the end of the day, it's about building community, people coming together to accomplish something good, to change themselves, to transform themselves, right? And to become better Muslims than they were yesterday, they were last week, they were last month. How is that going to happen if people don't even feel like they belong there,
Mm.
and they don't feel like that's a environment that they should be in, that people care about them? Honestly, all those basic principles, like, they all apply to our deen. It's from our deen, right?
I was just gonna say that the whole idea of taking everyone's opinion is from the idea of mashwara.
Yeah.
Rasulullah SAW
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
would essentially what ask the Sahaba around him and take from their opinion. It's the reason he took the opinion of the youth, right, during the Battle of Uhud,
Yeah.
right? So it's not that we. The idea is, and right now I'm speaking as an organizer. It's not that we are trying to take opinions to waste time, or we're trying to take opinions because we don't have experience or knowledge. It's not that, but it could be that someone might have a better idea than us, and that's something
Yes.
that always remains. That's
Yes.
one point. And the second point is we want people to feel included. Not to say that every opinion is the right opinion. Let's get that straight out of the side. Like, just because you have an opinion doesn't mean you have to take it. But at the same time, everyone's opinion should be heard. And I think that's a discussion for a different day. Like, what does it mean to be quote unquote heard, right?
Yeah.
Because when someone says something and it's not taken, some people can say, "Hey, how come I gave this opinion?" For example, let's say the masjid. Let's switch it. The masjid politics, right? The youth director comes and says, "I gave this opinion. Our youth group said we should do this," and the masjid leadership says, "Oh, we heard you."
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about that?
um Wait, so masjid leadership says that we heard you, but it's not taken into consideration? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, essentially, and to go back to, like, when you went to the leadership and they didn't give you the reason of why, and or they gave you the why. How do you go back to your group and explain that?
Yeah. That's how you disengage them. This is how, as an organization, you get disengaged. Even if you're a child organization, sister organization, whatever you want to call it, uh, if people are not heard, eventually they're just going to disengage. Um, and you make that clear to the rest of the organization. I hope everybody understands that. I think we're getting there. As organizations, various organizations, you see like there's more meetings, more getting together, more talking, more understanding, more consideration of everybody else's opinion, and those things are really contributing to the growth of the organizations. How do you go back and explain it? You actually just say like, yeah, these are the things we said, these are the things that was heard, and yeah, that's not a good. Oh,
Because you
let's.
what you don't, because there's a fear, right? Like you don't want to rile up the youth against the leadership, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into like one of the questions I had set up for you, which was like finding that balance, right? That to essentially balance between the gap of leadership and the youth. Like, what does a youth organizer or what do youth organizers do to really make sure that we can still keep moving forward? We can still keep people positive. We have these issues with the leadership, but we want to keep going. How do you keep going?
Yeah, you try to shift focus, right? Try to still keep them engaged and say, hey, let's try to design the next program, let's start talking about the next program. And then hopefully you get some feedback on the program that wasn't a go, and try to bring that back and say, here are the things we can change, or here are the things that we need to keep in mind when we're designing programs that we want to do for youth. And then give that as a feedback and go back to work, go back to the drawing board. One of the things as good leaders, what you do, right, is when you go back, you never carry emotions with you. Like, last thing you ever do is you go back to the committee, back to your team, and you say, could you believe that they wouldn't even listen to us, we said that. That's not good leadership, right? You go
That's
back and you say,
basically what happens.
you basically no
That's why
you
that's why I brought it up.
yeah, you go back and you lay it out, though, like you're not trying to be different, right? But what you're saying is, remember what the overall mission is. The overall mission is not disunity, it's unity, right? So you go back and you say, look, this was a struggle, I know you how you guys feel, I feel the same, but we have to remember we're still part of this organization, right? And this organization is trying to accomplish what's needed to support our other organization, the parent organization. Let's come up with another way that we can work uh, with the elders and everybody else, so that we can find more success, right?
Hmm.
Because what's going to end up happening if you don't approach it in that manner, there are a lot of people that have a lot of very limited time, and they want to cut conversations right short. And I know we started talking about, remember the meetings, we should go back to that. Actually, that's a really key thing in organizations growth, right? But they want to cut time, and they're going to say, okay, forget it then. Not what other ideas, forget it, no other ideas. We're not even accepted, we're not going to be looked at the same, so we don't even have to, I don't even have any more ideas, forget that. And then what's going to happen when that happens? Few other youth are going to be like, yeah, you know what, you're right, I support you. You're right, we don't want to do this work, right? So this is where leadership comes in, right? You basically have to have thick skin. This leadership is having thick skin. You're gonna get beat up on all sides. You're gonna get beat up by the people you serve. You're gonna get beat up by the people you report to. You're gonna get beat up by the team that you're trying to keep together and or working together, right? Because of the scenarios like this that are going to come up, and there's so many other scenarios of things that are going to come up where people are saying things passively, actively, people are evaluating the organization differently. That's what makes a good leader, right? Is when you are able to take all of that, and you always remember what the ultimate goal is. You're working for Allah. My job is to actually serve Allah, right? And whatever action that I take, whatever reaction I do based off of what I had to experience, if that doesn't serve Allah, right? Maybe it's not a good thing to do. So even now now you struggle with that difficulty of, okay, so does that mean hiding the truth? No, absolutely not. Is it
That was
easy?
my
Yeah,
that
you
was
don't hide the truth, you don't hide the truth, you don't shape it differently, you don't. What you do is you tell the truth, right? And then you switch back to saying what we
Well,
believe.
what if the I'm not saying this happened to you again. What if the leadership ends up getting mad at you they yell at you, they go off on you, right? You're saying don't hide the truth, right? And this is your inner team, your main team that you work with in your youth organization, and leadership just went off on you, right? And there's two ways of you going back to your team. One is saying they didn't go with it. The other is saying what, how they didn't go with it. What would you recommend in that case?
Yeah, no, you should say that they didn't go with it, and you should say what the responses were. You should say what question you asked, and what response you got for it, right? But anything that's gonna like expand the damage, you want to minimize that, right? Anything that's gonna expand the relationship between the two organization, minimize that. Minimize that. Don't change the truth, right? But you don't need to contribute something that doesn't bring good.
If you can take this clip for anyone who thinks you're against the Masjid leadership, this is a good clip to kind of take out. Look, you're trying to minimize it, right? And
Yeah,
but that's
yeah,
that's my main point. Yeah,
yeah. You don't remember, like, whatever your reaction to it, right, should not bring bad, right? It should still bring good, and we should be able to move forward. Because if you're not doing that, then you're, yeah, you're not quite, uh you need to more work more on the leadership skills aspect of it,
mm,
right? 'Cause that's what leaders are different. That's why leaders are different than people that are actually probably doing the day-to-day work and
yeah,
activities,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You need to be able to withstand all of that and know how to still keep the mission in mind and move forward,
And
and
then
still be able to work together.
and then kind of like my
It's
last question.
hard, I'll tell you that.
No, I mean, no doubt, right? Having a thick skin overall, that's
It's
going to be
very
challenging
hard.
for anybody. But like going back to the funding issue, right? Like,
Yeah,
I know you mentioned, okay, yeah, there's a serving aspect to it, and I think even you and I disagreed on this for a few times when we discussed about this, right? I think you and I always disagree on funding. So this is a good point. This is a good way to wrap up the discussion, right? On a disagreement. Um, what are your thoughts on like how a masjid should fund the youth organization, keeping in mind you can give two examples, right? An impoverished or a community, right? A community that doesn't have a lot of.
Masjid. Yeah,
Sorry, you got cut off. I was saying,
I
keeping
didn't
in
hear
mind
that
two
part.
scenarios. Yeah, two scenarios. One being that you have a very like a suburban community. Everyone has a lot of money. You have doctors, engineers, right? They raise millions of dollars, right? Then you have the other communities that are pretty much like, man, they just want to update their bathroom, right? And that's it's important. Your wudu might get messed up. You know what I'm saying? But what's your opinion on how should a masjid or the leadership fund the youth organization?
Yeah, I think I always go back to the mission and the vision and that priority list, right? You should have as an organization, you should always have a mission. You should have a vision of how to get to that mission, multiple vision, maybe multiple mission state, whatever, right? But you should know what you are trying to accomplish as an organization, as a place of worship, as a masjid, uh, how you want to serve the community, right? And then a vision for what those accomplishments look like, and then your goals, like what are we going to do this year out of all of those things, what are we going to focus on this year. Based on that list of priorities, that's where your fundraiser should go. Whatever amount of fundraiser that you've collected, right? It's not very smart if you've set up a goal list of 15 things you want to accomplish this year, and you raised $1,500 for it, right? It
Right.
could be $15 million or $150,000, whatever the budgets are for
Yeah.
various. But as an example, I've got 15 goals. I've got $1,500, but the $1,000 are going to goal number five, and $500 gets distributed among the rest of the goal. It's like, logically, it's not even smart, right? So we basically are failing right at the beginning. Spend a lot of time setting the goals that you have. If youth organization and the youth of your community and their engagement in the masjid and the organization itself is a priority for you, are you giving enough resources there? So now you might say that one thing we hear is that, what's the big deal? Like, okay, you're telling me I need to put 20% of the total budget that we have for the entire masjid into the youth organization. What do they need 20% of the budget for? What's the big deal? I mean, come on, youth, we're not here to entertain them and do this, do that, right? That's where the definition of all those programs come in. If they are actually a priority, you need to sit down, strategically think what things we can do to actually engage them. And here's the budget that we have allocated for you guys. Let's figure out what things you want to do. Of course, we're not going to be supportive of things that the Sharia doesn't allow, and things that are not good. We're not saying do that, right? But what we're saying is that you need to make them understand that the fund is available for you because you guys are a priority for us, because we want you to come, because we want you to be involved in, because this is your second home, because this is where um, your problems of life are solved, right? If they understand that, and if they know that the resources are there, it's completely different feeling. I look at it as like it's always like a family concept, right? If you've got your kids and you're telling your kids that I love you, I really love you, and I want you to, what is it that you want, right? For something that you've accomplished, or you're a priority to me, what it is that you want, and they're
You
saying,
guys talk to your kids?
yeah, no.
Just kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But I'm saying, like, they
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
feel that love, right? Like, you have
yeah.
to say that what is it that you really want, and they're saying that I really want, I wanted this Snicker candy, right? And you're saying no, no, but here, have this organic apple instead, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying like start feeding them whatever they want. And if you're saying no to that Snicker candy, you need to explain to them why no. Maybe they'll buy into it, but at least they get the feeling of care, right? Like, hey, even when I'm saying no to you, it's because it's harmful for your body. And yeah, maybe today you can have it, but we can't always get that, because you know how if you don't brush your teeth and you don't take all that stuff out and you build
Yeah.
candy, you do. Youth of the family of the masjid, right, are no different. They have to feel like they belong there. They have to feel like that there's budget for them. They have to feel like they have the uh, room to be able to design and build their own programs, right? Especially within the guidelines that you provide. That's fine. Most of the cases, what ends up happening, we verbally say we really want youth, we really want them around, we really care for them, right? But when it comes to the action, you brought up the budget part, I'm talking about the planning part and all that, feeling and caring, right? They're probably not feeling that. And if they're not feeling that, don't expect them to be around. It's just not going to happen. Just like anybody else, right? If I don't feel comfortable being somewhere, and if the elders and adults don't feel being comfortable somewhere, they're just going to try to ignore that place, right? And they're going to try to get out of it. That's exactly what the youth are going to do, because we're all humans at the end of the day. It comes down to the care, the feeling of family, the feeling of the community, feeling of being together, right? And not just verbal invitation, but also actually making them feel like yes, it's your home. Yes, do you want to use this? Do you want to use that resource? Do you need budget? Do you guys, or you design this program, how much is the budget for it, right? I would even go as far as saying, if you even if you even have that priority, the 15 goals, remember, for the year, and things got kicked off, and at some point you realized, even for one of the youth organization, if that is your priority, there's a new project that came and you have to cut back from one of the other 14. If it's priority enough for you, you probably will cut it, right? And
Yeah.
imagine the feeling the youth organization and the youth gets when that happens, right? They're like, oh, hey, we didn't even have this thing on the list. We didn't have budget for it, right? But the parent organization said, oh, that's a great idea you guys brought up. Instead of us actually replacing the 3 windows this year, right? And the 4 doors, or instead of upgrading the furnace that we wanted to do
Or,
this year.
or a better example is like instead of getting a newer chandelier, okay, fine, go with that
Yeah,
one.
or okay, or more like, yeah, that we should even already cut first, right? But say instead of doing that, we're going to give that money to you. How do you think those youth are going to feel, the 10 youth that's there? I mean, that's the family of feeling, that's the family of belonging, that's the family of care. And do you think that we continuously say that they have all this time, they don't want to give it? Show care, and guess what's going to happen? Even that extra time they have now, because that's what they're trying to do, wherever they're trying to go, in most cases, is finding a place of belonging. Even youth that are getting away from masjids, families, and other places, they're actually going to places that they feel like they belong and they
Yeah,
care.
yeah, 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 yeah.
We need
And
to create that environment. We need to create that environment. They're not trying to, they're humans, they're not trying to run away from something that we just have to make sure we understand them, so that we create programs and environment, and we show our care, true care, right? Not saying that we care and we want to do it, but show the true care, and then just bring them, offer it to them. Guaranteed, the humans, they'll come, you know they'll want to get involved. One other thing I wanted to mention too, like sometimes what we do is we also tell people that, hey, this house is yours just as much as mine, and the key belongs to me, right? So when you come, knock on the door so I can open the door for you. um, that's not really telling somebody that they belong there, right? If we really truly believe that somebody belongs there and we really mean it, we'll start giving them the keys to it. And if it's a trust issue, if we don't think that they belong, maybe we shouldn't say that until we build that trust. So I
uh,
kind of wanted to mention that,
yeah, yeah,
uh,
go ahead.
as a the house is an analogy, right? But
Hmm.
what I really mean is, like,
And I'm
if
in
we
real estate, so that works out. Go ahead.
yeah, if we actually believe them, like that, their opinion matters on how we're going to do the wudu area, because the youth comes in and they always have problems, sitting and doing it. They'd rather stand on the side over here to wash their feet, right? Or, hey, you know what, we love to have the shower heads on this side, right? Put the shower heads in. What's the big deal? Put two
Yeah, yeah.
stations of that, right? All of a sudden they start feeling like, they did that for the younger kids because they can come over here and then wash their feet, because we come from playing
Hmm.
afterward, right? Instead of telling them, don't put the shoes over here, you guys always bring in all these shoes after playing summertime, right? Put a mat there and say that, hey, try not to put the shoes there, but just walk over the mat into this area where you can wash your feet. It's a complete different feeling.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
complete different way of solving the problem than solving it by saying, you guys do this, look how much mess you make, we keep it clean. What's the point of keeping it clean if they're not going to be there? What's the point of keeping it
No,
clean
no, 100%.
if they didn't feel like they belong there, and then tomorrow they're not there? So you're thinking you still keeping that area clean.
You're
You
you're honed in. You're honed in on your task list. Your task list
know,
is keep the masjid clean, keep this in order, get this done, right? And this is a common phrase that we always try to remind ourselves. Don't forget the organizers, right? Through your organizing. Like we said this for the volunteers, right? And this can apply to Masjid Politics, it can apply to Masjid Board, doesn't matter. Anybody, don't forget the organizers, the actual human beings, while in the midst of your organizing. You have the best plan, the best idea, the number one hit coming through of the biggest masjid in the entire community. So what do? Every human being becomes an object for you to kind of utilize as a tool. Like you do this, you do that, and that's kind of what
they're
happens.
just like assets, right? Like
Yeah.
your job, you're just a resource. Get this, no better way to disengage people, right? You do that again, keeps going back to that belonging, right? Like, if every family member is just as important, and if every participant of that community's organization and everybody that visits there is that important, we need to be able to make sure that people are feeling that. If they're not feeling that, we can still run a masjid, and we can still get people, right, to come to pray, because they're not coming to pray anymore to that organization. Those people that are now coming to pray, they're coming to pray because they have an obligation to God, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They'll
yeah.
continue to fulfill that.
Yeah, yeah.
The people that
Irrespective of the actual masjid, doesn't matter which masjid it is. Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
go to whichever one, right? But the people that you're really looking for as an organization to grow are people that actually understands what your mission is and what you're trying to do here at this masjid. And it should be very clear. They should understand what that is, right? Only then they're going to engage. So we as organization first have to decide, that is that what we're trying to do, or are we just trying to provide them salah where people can come and pray? And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's perfectly okay
I
too.
would disagree. I would say there's something wrong with that. The reason I
No,
disagree,
no, I'm not saying that we should do that, but I'm saying it's okay to have that as a mission. If, at least be realistic about it. It's okay.
That's you being nice. That's me. Like, and I get what you're saying. You're coming from a fair perspective, and for me, it's like, no, it's not okay, because if you actually do that, yes, you'll be less accountable and you'll get away with less people pointing fingers at you. But as soon as 20, 30 years pass, listen, 30 years from now, like, if I'm at almost 30 and I become 60 30 years from now, like, what age is gonna be in the masjid? Who's going to be in the masjid? Imagine everyone, all of my peers who graduated with me, and they're the youth right now, under 30, 30 years from now, if they don't feel like they belong in the masjid now, there is no way they are going back to the masjid later. There's no way.
Yeah. Don't forget though. So that doesn't mean that we should do it that way. But I'm saying
Yeah,
my
yeah,
my point is at least set your expectation.
yeah,
What we're doing is that is what we're trying to do, but we're setting an expectation of all these other goals, right?
yeah.
Just be truthful to your own goals, right? Like what your mission of that organization is. If your mission for that or that masjid is just that, right? At least spell that out and just say that that's all we're looking to do. It's not, definitely that's not the way to go, but at least be truthful about it, right?
No,
it's
no,
that's not
honestly,
that's not
that was gonna be my last question for you, which is like, what do you see as like the future of youth organizations within our communities, right? Like, at least from my experience, I've noticed a few places have like more like they're trying to have youth programming, right? Just from what you noticed, do you have any thoughts, concluding remarks on what you see the future of youth programming to be?
just working closely. Pretty much everything that we talked about since the beginning, right? Um, Aligning the mission and the vision of the organizations, giving them their own space, giving them their own mission and vision. That's child mission and vision compared to the parent organization, and then budgets and making them feel like they belong, making them feel like that you actually care for them. Remember, I keep saying making them feel like it, right? Because there's a
Because,
difference saying something
oh, right,
versus
right, right.
actually making somebody feel like that they belong, right? Doing all of those things are just as important. And as far as needing the youth organizations, I think everybody's on board now. They understand because we've gone through that age gap now, right? All of a sudden, we're seeing all our dads and uncles. They're getting to that age, and it's becoming difficult, right? And they're
Allah
realizing,
preserve them. Allah, I mean,
and they're realizing like, oh, subhanallah, like what happened? Like there's this gap, right? We migrated to this foreign country, we built all this stuff, but they're not here. Why aren't they here, right? um, and the longer we prolong that, the harder it's going to become. um, so we need to refocus, and everybody needs to. I know we talked a lot about parents and parent organization and elders, but same thing with the youth, right? We can't just say that, oh, nobody's listening to us. I mean, that's just being amateur. We really need to grow up. We really need to take ownership of things, right? And if anybody really cares about making a change, they're just going to do enough, right? You are going to get involved, you are going to stay involved, and once you understand what the mission is, what the overall goal is, and to come together as a community to become a strong community, so that we can live the deen, you're just going to come, you are going to come, and you're going to take ownership of it, and do what's needed, and you're going to have the thick skin. You need to have the thick skin. You do that when you go to work. Most people, you think everybody's jobs are easy and everything else. I'm sure we deal with challenges, right? Why can't you do that? Why can't you do that for what really matters, truly matters? That's the way you're going to live your life, right? If you once you understand that, you're willing to take that on. It's okay. It's never going to be perfect. Imagine like all the elders that came to this country, and the things that they have done, right? Where are we as youth now? Like we're not nowhere close to it. I mean,
well, most of us are pretty much focused on making money right now.
I know, but we have to think about like what the life is about, right? It's
Yeah,
not about money. I know the whole concept of making enough money to get free time and all of that stuff, and retiring well and all that stuff. But how much of that is part of our deen? We have to think about those things, right?
it would be very unfortunate for the individual who chases money to assume that he will retire at a point, um, and then never reach that point, and he passes away chasing money.
Subhanallah.
The same idea of someone who has the means of going to Hajj, and they're like, I'll just do it later on because I have to refine and redefine myself as a human being. I'm gonna come back, inshallah, pure, clean. So I'll just do it later, and they never reach that later point. Just 2 days ago, a 23-year-old passed away in a car accident in Dearborn. 23-year-old, inna
Mm.
lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, Jannah.
I
I
mean,
mean, so that's the sad part, right? So it's like you can have theories in place, but no one guaranteed you to meet your goal. So the only thing that really counts is what you're doing today. If you're not doing it today, it's not gonna happen tomorrow. I wanted to let you finish with, because I know you're still working with Youth of Ummah heavily. So maybe you can mention as the concluding remark the type of programming they have to offer. So if other organizers or different people watch, they can get an idea of kind of what you're working with and what you guys are offering, inshallah.
inshallah, absolutely. I see Brother Mohsin is going off on the comment sections too, so it's nice to see him. Um, I Yeah.
Wait,
So
how did you see the comment section? I don't even see the comment section.
you don't see it,
No, okay, I'll
bro?
see it later.
Alhamdulillah. All right. Youth of Ummah has a lot of programs going on now, mashallah. They always have a lot of programs going on. So if you are in near and around Iona, 12 Mile, and Ryan, take advantage of those. Right now, they have the Sisters program going on, Faith and Fitness on Mondays. They've got Wednesday, Mommy and Me, kids 5 and under come together with moms, and they do preschool type of activities, and it's a great program. So get involved with that. Kids grow from it, and then the moms, more importantly, the moms come together, and it's this network of mothers, right? Mothers that actually cares about their kids. It's in a Muslim environment, Islamic environment with other Muslim sisters, and you get to share your experiences and help each other. So good place to come together. We have Brothers Hangout on Fridays. We're not doing it as consistently. We're going to probably restart that on a monthly basis now. Um, we had basketball league that finished last weekend. So we had a great basketball league with high school kids this year, mashallah. First year we did it with high school kids, and then we're going to actually try to redo that next year again and include the college students most likely. So we're still talking about that. We've got junior soccer, the biggest program that Youth of Ummah hosts on Fridays. We're going to do that. That's going to kick off in the middle of June. So it's going through planning. A lot of volunteer parents that came into our orientation yesterday. So we're going to kick that off. We've got a really, really good program that we started this year called Junior Seekers. It's for children of ages between 6 and 12, and similar to kind of like it's a kind of like the continuation of Mommy and Me, but on Sundays they come together. It's not another maktab, right? But it's a activity based program. So kids come for about half hour, they learn about a concept. So for example, today they learned about how a strong person is the one that can hold that can control themselves when they're angry. So they'll learn about a few hadiths that are related to a topic for the day. Today's topic was when you get angry, what you should do. You should stop. You should try to sit down. If you're still angry, lay down. If you're still angry, go make wudu. So we have we 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 go through the program with some of these topics, and then they'll learn about it, and then afterwards they'll do an activity related to that. Maybe a craft, a drawing, or just sharing their experiences with each other. So that sort of stuff. So we have that on Junior Seekers. We have Iona and Youth of Ummah has a Sunday class for all the adults. So parents, a lot of parents are getting their kids involved into a lot of these ongoing programs that are going on. But they need a place for themselves too, right? And Sunday classes are a great place for you to get involved. Take some classes there. Have a weekly learning session. That's also good. We also have a program for the girls only. It's I believe it's 7 to 12 or 13-year-olds called Noor Circle. It's bi-weekly, and that program is also going very good. And
Yeah, I'm
last,
presenting it on the screen too. If anyone wants to follow the page on Instagram, it's being shared
yeah,
right now.
yeah, Jazakallah khair. And then the last one is the social. It's also sisters only program. It happens bi-weekly, and it's also sisters. You can see some pictures there where they come and do different type of activities, crafts, and that sort of stuff. There's also monthly halakas going on. So follow the page. There's ton of things going on. We're focusing on different age group of children so that we can cater to all the age groups. But in addition to that, also opportunities for parents to come together. The programs are really designed for not serving the kids only through the organization, through the programs themselves, but also for parents to come together. We really need all the parents to come together, and remember, going back to that whole community concept, right? um, don't just like enroll your kids and just step away and say, "Oh, okay, kids are benefiting from it, we want to see you there, inshallah." And so that you can connect with those of us that are also parents, and those of us that are trying to work to serve the children, and collectively we can do more good, inshallah. So come
Yeah,
together.
and the reason why I wanted you to share that was just to show the active work you're doing. I mean, I know you're not doing work for the social, you're not doing work for circle. You're
Excuse
part
me.
of a bigger team that is doing this overall work, right? But I wanted to show that because maybe someone who's watching this video might be very pessimistic and thinking like, okay, or negative, like, man, what's the point? Look, the level of programming that they're involved in this particular youth program, at least, it's still heavy. It's still very inclusive. It's still going on very strong. That Noor Circle program with girls has like over 10, 20 girls, right?
Yeah.
PM, 80, 100 people sign up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
These things happen all the time. So the reason we have these discussions is to just highlight the truth and the reality, but it doesn't hinder us from continuing the effort. The effort just kind of has to
Absolutely.
continue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And always look at those programs as a gateway for us to come together, right? I think that's going to be the key, because a lot of times people might think, "Oh, hey, youth programs being ran." No, it's a place for parents too. Young parents, old parents, but everybody, we should come together. That's the whole point, right? It's a
Hmm.
place. Remember, it's for us to come together and figure out what our needs are. We would love to hear from parents too, even coming and saying, "You know what? I think kids need this type of thing." And we always have parents that bring up good ideas, right? Doesn't mean we can.
Parents who bring up good ideas and then they don't jump in.
Yeah.
I remember, as a funny note, I'll mention that there was a brother who reached out to me saying, "Hey, when is this program starting?" I said, "Well, we need one more brother volunteer to sign up. So as soon as you're ready, this program will launch." The guy never responded back, right? But yeah.
That's why we go back to continuously saying that they get involved. Don't just put the children there
But
and think,
it becomes a babysitting program at that point, right? It's just a babysitting thing. Yeah.
yeah.
But no, khair, jazakallah khair, Tushabai, for coming on and sharing your
Alhamdulillah.
2 cents and your feedback. I really appreciate it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
Like,
accept and allow us to continue the effort,
um,
and allow us to stay sincere. Imam Mustafa today was telling us about this whole idea of celebrity scholarship. Maybe that'll be a program one day we have as well as a discussion point. And he was talking about the importance of sincerity and the work that we do and what goes behind it. So may Allah allow us to stay sincere and not look for fame or any ways of shining or the limelight or looking for
um,
any form of money or attention or anything of the sort, and allow us to stay focused on the overall objective, which is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakallah khair for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being on episode number 2. With that, let's conclude. Inshallah subhanaka wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair for having